The night Luke Carter made his last promise, the desert was breathing like a wounded beast. Wind crawled across the sand. A distant storm growled, and the firelight trembled over the silent face of the woman he loved, Mary Hawley. She stood on the edge of the porch without a word, her hands folded tight. Her eyes held more fear than tears, because Mary was the kind of woman who waited in silence, even when her heart was breaking. And Luke was the kind of man who only rode into darkness when there was no other choice. He had come to her with dust on his coat and blood on his knuckles. Hunted by ruthless men, led by a vicious outlaw named Black Ridge. Ridge was a man who never forgot a debt and never spared a life. Luke knew that if Ridge reached this town, Mary would be caught in the crossfire of a war she never chose. So, under the dying light of the campfire, with the horses shifting nervously, Luke took her trembling hands. He whispered the words that would define both their fates. "I'll ride them away from you, and I swear, I'll come back." Mary only nodded, her lips quivering, afraid that if she spoke, the promise would already be broken. Before dawn, Luke rode out alone into the storm, his horse's hooves pounding like a countdown to death. Mary remained on the porch long after the fire turned to ash, waiting. She was still there when the first screams of thunder split the sky and rain fell like bullets from the heavens. Days passed, with no sign of him. Only rumors carried by passing riders. Gunfire in the canyon, bodies in the riverbed, Black Ridge still alive. Each night, Mary lit the same lantern in the window, even when the townsfolk whispered that waiting for a dead man was madness. Yet she waited with a strength that refused to be shaken. On the fourth night, the storm returned, heavier than before, rattling the shutters of the abandoned house across from her porch. Suddenly, a horse's cry sliced through the rain, followed by the thunder of hooves collapsing into the mud. Mary ran barefoot into the storm. She found Luke collapsed in the dirt, his blood mixing with rainwater, his revolver empty, his breath shallow, but still fighting. As she dragged him inside with shaking arms, she realized the outlaw war had followed him home. Ridge's men surrounded the house before dawn, shadows moving outside the walls, like death itself. Luke, weak and wounded, told Mary the truth at last. The only way to end the hunt was for him to face Ridge alone. Ridge didn't want the town. He didn't want the land. As gunshots shattered the windows, Luke pulled Mary close and whispered his final promise again with blood on his lips. Then he stepped out into the storm for one last stand. Lightning revealed Ridge's face, twisted with rage as the two men faced each other in the muddy street. Shots echoed like cannon fire through the desert canyon. Men fell in the rain, horses screamed in terror, until only Luke and Ridge remained standing amid the bodies in the storm. With his final bullet, Luke took Ridge down, but not before Ridge's blade found its way into Luke's side. As Ridge fell lifeless into the mud, Luke collapsed beside him under the fading storm. I came back, and then the wind carried his last breath away into the desert silence. The town buried Luke as a hero. The outlaw thread erased. The storm passed, but Mary never left the porch where she had waited. Not because she was trapped by grief, but because that porch was where his promise lived. Every evening, as the sun sank into the sand like fire into water, Mary lit the same lantern. They can see a lone rider moving through the rain toward a single burning light, still keeping a promise that death itself could not break. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.